In this video I'm going to show you how to use VORTEX to install and manage a special type of mod called the Script Extender. Welcome to a beginner's guide to VORTEX Part 7. If you don't know what a script extender is, the short version is it's a special type of mod that adds new features and functionality that can be accessed by other mod makers, allowing them to make more complicated and more powerful mods. The script extenders also add their own features that don't need other mods and can help with things like performance and stability, but overall this series of mods, the script extenders for Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas and many other BGS games are considered essential mods. Pretty much most people modding those games on PC, I would just recommend you always have the script extender. It's probably the first thing you install. One of the things that makes the Script Extender series of mods a little different is they install files in the main game folder, not just in the data folder. In fact, some of them only have files in that main folder. And traditionally mod managers only installed files to the data folder, which meant for script extenders many of the critical files you needed had to be installed by hand. But VORTEX allows you to install and manage all of the files for the mod. It just requires a couple of extra steps. Now there are two ways of approaching this and I'm going to show you both ways. However, they both start with downloading the file, of course. So I'm going to install SKSE 64, that is the script extender for Skyrim Special Edition, and of course I'm going to need to download that first of all, the 7Z archive. I will download that to my desktop. Once the file has downloaded, I need to extract it out to a folder. So I'm going to right click on the 7Z archive. I'm going to go to the archive program of my choice, in this case 7-zip, and I'm going to extract to, and I'm going to keep the name as is. I'm then going to delete the archive I downloaded, open up the folder I've just extracted, and I'll find another folder called SKSE 64. Go in there. And these are the files I'm going to be using. Now this is the important part. VORTEX can often figure out where files should go when you download a mod, so the file structure is not quite as important. But for this sort of mod, there is a very specific structure you're going to need to set up. Luckily, the file structure is identical to the structure required by the game, so you should probably know it pretty well at this point. And the script extender actually comes shipped with a structure that's pretty close to what we need. It's just a few folders down. Now the structure is this. Any files that need to go in the main folder need to be in the top folder of your archive. So that is the DLL files and the executable in this case. You can also have the text files if you want, and I'm going to keep them because I like to have things like what's new.txt so I can read it at any point. And anything that needs to be in the data folder needs to be in a folder called data. And as you can see, SKSE comes set up that way. The scripts are already in a folder called data. You don't need the SRC folder. This is the source folder. This is more for developers who want to see how it was built. So I can actually delete that, or I could ignore it in the next step. The next step is to select data and all of these loose files and just make an archive in this folder with this structure. So I'm going to right click, go to 7-zip, and I'm going to add to archive, and I'm going to give it the same name. So essentially it's the same file I downloaded, but with a slightly different file structure. Then you need to make sure you have VORTEX open on the mod section and then drag the archive you just created to where it says drop files. This will add the script extender to the mod section for this game. Now resist the urge to just install this the way you normally install mods and instead right click and select unpack as is. What this will do is it will tell VORTEX to not try and figure out the file structure, but to just unpack it in the structure that you have set up. Do not enable the mod yet. You're still not finished. Go along to the now installed but disabled mod, double click it to see the details and go to where it says mod type. Click on the drop down menu and select D input. This is the critical step. You must select D input. Whilst you're here, if it hasn't auto-filled the name correctly, you can change this. This is version 2.0.17 and I'll just change this to SKSE 64 so it looks a little neater. Then I'm going to double click that. I can now enable the mod. And that's it. It has now been installed and it's being managed by VORTEX. If I go along to my Skyrim Special Edition installation folder, you can see I now have the SKSE 64 loader and related files in this folder. And if I start the game, if I go to console and type get SKSE version, enter, I can see version 2.017 has been loaded, so it's installed correctly. And because VORTEX is now managing the entire mod, if I go to a different profile where I do not have this mod installed, my vanilla profile for example, and I enable that, the mod is disabled, and if I look in the installation folder, the files I need for SKSE have been removed. So you can now use profiles to have either different versions of the script extender installed for the same game, or a profile with no script extender installed whatsoever. Now I did mention there were two methods of installing the script extender with VORTEX, and I'm going to show you the second one now, and it's actually maybe a little simpler, but it does come with one small disadvantage that I will discuss once we're done. And this time I'm going to install NVSE, which is the Fallout New Vegas script extender. Obviously the first thing you need to do is once again download the mod itself. You do that from nvsesilverlock.org. I'm going to download this to my desktop. But this time, once it's downloaded, I'm not going to open it up. I'm just going to drag it straight to the drop file section and add it to VORTEX. There you can see it. I'm then going to right click and not install. I'm going to still unpack as is. I'm not going to enable it, so I'm going to dismiss that. You can see it's actually renamed this one. It's detected the version as well, so that's very useful. But now, of course, I've added this file and I've not sorted out the file structure as I did for SKSE 64. I'm going to need to do that now by right-clicking and open in File Manager. This will show you the files as they've been installed by this mod. This is the installation folder for this mod, and as you can see it contains a subfolder, and we need to go in there and we need to drag everything we need back up one level. So I'm going to drag data and all of these loose NVSE files, but not the SRC file. I'm going to cut those, go back up one folder. Do not go up any further. Do not go up beyond this point. You need to be in the folder that has been set up for this mod, and then paste. I can then remove this subfolder so that all I've got now are the files that go in the main folder and the files in the data folder. Now, for NVSE, believe it or not, you don't need these data files. They're a bit of a test. You could delete them if you want. They won't actually hurt you if you keep them there. So it's completely up to you whether you keep them or not. But I'm going to delete them just to show you that if you have absolutely no data folder, it will still install these files. I'm going to close this because the mod file structure has now been set up correctly. I'm going to once again double click on NVSE. I'm going to go to the mod type, change it to D input, and then enable. And that's it. I'm now going to start the game to make sure that it's installed correctly. Get NVSE version, enter, version 5. So the mod is installed. Now that may be a little simpler and perhaps a little quicker, but I did mention there was one disadvantage, and the disadvantage is if you remove this mod but leave the archive there, you want to remove it for some reason and then you reinstall it, you're going to have lost the file structure, so that if you go back and unpack as is, and then, I'm going to dismiss this, go back to the file structure, you've lost the file structure changes, so you have to do them again. The first way I showed you would actually keep the file structure because you changed it in the actual archive you added to Vortex, so you could uninstall it and then reinstall it without having to go through all that work again. It's not really that big a deal, and I doubt whether most of you are ever going to uninstall a mod. You're more likely to disable it. If you do uninstall a mod, you'll probably be deleting the archive as well. But that is it. It's a little more complicated than installing normal mods, but not much. The critical things to remember are make sure the file structure is correct. It is important for this mod, and make sure you set the mod type to D input. If you get those two right, everything should be fine. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for this video. I will be back with another video in this series, and I would love it if you could join me for that, or indeed any of the other videos that I will be making. I look forward to seeing you there if you do decide to join me, and until then, remember as always, have fun.